Welcome to Chicks Who Fly, a podcast where we celebrate women pilots and share their aviation love stories. Whether you're dreaming of taking to the skies or looking for ways to start making money in aviation quickly while growing as a pilot and opening doors for yourself that you otherwise wouldn't have access to, you're in the right place. As an advanced and instrument ground instructor, I specialize in helping aspiring pilots transition from other careers and begin making money in the aviation industry as soon as possible, while taking advantage of the fact that teaching subject is one of the best ways to learn deeply. Becoming a ground instructor is one of the fastest ways to get paid while you grow as a pilot and unlock new opportunities. If you're ready to take the first step, I have a free PDF that's packed with all the information, requirements, and steps to become an FAA certificated ground instructor. Just opt in by clicking the link in the show notes and get started on your aviation journey today. In today's episode, I get to have a conversation with Ana Carolina Uribe. Ana Carolina's aviation roots run deep, with her father founding Ecuatoriana Airlines in Ecuador in 1954. Her passion for flying blossomed through the influence of her private pilot husband and her son, who has a profound love for planes despite being autistic. Starting her flying career in her 40s, Ana Carolina found immense support within aviation communities and dedicated herself to empowering young Latina women. She organized the inspiring Women of Aviation International event, providing free flights and motivational talks to many young women. Her remarkable contributions have earned her the prestigious Jefferson Award for public service. Ana also opens up about the challenges she's faced, from landing in difficult conditions to managing the costs of aviation education. Through personal stories of overcoming obstacles and learning from flying different aircraft, Ana's journey is a testament to resilience and passion. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Thank you for coming and welcome to the podcast, Ana Carolina. Do you prefer Ana or Ana Carolina?
In Latin America, it's Ana Carolina. In the US, it's easy to say only one name, right? So Ana here, but yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on to share your story. And I guess I'm going to want to start at the very beginning, which is, how did you get into aviation?
So my story is a little different. My dad owned an airline in 1954 with a group of investors in Ecuador. He used to call it Ecuatoriana Airlines. He changed everything by the 70s because we have a coup d'etat and ended up in the part of the government, and the airline went under in 2001. One thing is to run a business and one thing is to fly only, right? So that's what the issue they had there. And when I met my husband, he was a private pilot. So I had to join him sometime. But when my son was around 2, we realized we got a little different. So I have an autistic child at home who, believe it or not, loves planes. So when he was a little older, we became a point, yeah, the weather here, you can fly 24 something there on the East Coast. You have the winter time. So we usually don't have that. And my husband went back to flying. He got his instrument license. And then I decided if I'm going to fly with him, might as well learn how to fly and be able to join in the fun. So I ended up becoming a private pilot.
Excellent. And what certificates and ratings do you hold currently?
That private pilot. The instrument is always in the works. But I usually fly with my husband whenever I can. It's fun to fly in the clouds. One of these days, when I have the time for it. Yeah, we try to fly and enjoy the time together in the air. That's you can say our dates are, now they call it $200 burgers. Fly in, you have lunch, you come back. So, yeah. So my son is a
Where
little older, he can stay home by himself for a little longer. So that makes things a little easier for us to fly.
and where in California are you?
I'm in San Francisco. San Francisco is an unusual place to learn to fly because you have this airspace is extremely busy. So you have San Francisco one side, you have Oakland, you have San Jose, and then you have a bunch of little airports around. So the communication is fast. what you learn here, you can apply it anywhere outside. It's really good. As a pilot who's learning to fly, this is the space. This is the busiest
Yes.
place.
I started to learn in Los Angeles, so I
Yeah.
can
Wow.
relate. Yes, we're no longer in Los Angeles. We're in Florida now because we live on this sailboat.
That's
Um,
so exciting.
it's amazingly similar to flying, except instead of the cruise speed being 120 knots, it's 5 or, or 6. So you
That's
can't
not the scary.
outrun weather.
Yeah, that's the only problem. Yeah.
Yes. So how old were you when you finally decided I'm going to start flying, and how did you approach that?
At the end of my 40s, I have a great teacher at home. So he was always supportive of the craziness of me flying. And then I walked into the flying club one day, and the majority are men. Just men. I decided to look into something related with women. And by an unusual chance, I found Women of Aviation because you have two institutions in the US. One is Women in Aviation International, is a huge thing, yeah, besides the 99, and then Women of Aviation International. I met the mind behind the idea, Michelle Collier. She's a Canadian who does these things a little bit different. So what she does is we try to celebrate the women in aviation. eh, The first woman who got received the license. Usually everything is between February at the beginning of March. He says if you find a couple of people that can give free flights, bring women into flight and then show them what it is. You need to coordinate locally with a group of pilots that are willing to give their time and the pilot owners to give them the rental so you can fly some women up. So the first year was really nice. I had 50 women during the weekend. In the following year, I decided to make it a little bigger. It got really big. So I had 400.
Holy poo.
Oh, yeah. So a full
Oh,
week of women flying all over the place. And in that, I met an amazing woman, who's Graciela Pescarello Sato. She used to fly C-135s, but she was the person coordinating. She was not the pilot. She was the person coordinating these links with the pilots up in the air. With her, we realized that we need to empower the young Latina somehow. So we went to a local high school in East Palo Alto and bring them in to see what it is, not really for the flying itself, but open their minds to do something a little bit different out of the neighborhoods, right? To show them, yes, you can go out of your house and you go to the park and then go to the neighbor and go to the city and make it a little bigger, get that inspiration a little bit higher. So we flew these young ladies around, and many of them are very happy about the idea or looking for something a little bit different. Doesn't mean it needs to be aviation, but they needs to be open their minds to be able to do something out of the pocket. We filled them up, and I brought into this presentation a famous Latina, Olga Custodio, who is the first Latina military pilot in the US. So she came and talked to the young ladies. So it was nice to see that interaction, right? The only thing is to inspire them to see themselves in you somehow. And I was nominated for the Jefferson Award, and I got that. I'm the only private pilot who has one of those, so very proud of it. And
amazing.
yeah, so it inspired this generation somehow. We have to give them different tools to be able to chase their dreams, even though they're sitting behind the desks, right? They're behind it because they're very quiet. They don't want to be uh, seen in the engineering side. They don't want to see in the aerospace side. They don't want to see in something that is has been always men related. No? The engineering has always been men related. So STEM nowadays is science, technology, robotics, engineering, arts, and math together to give them a little push to make sure that they have a voice in the system, and then put themselves out there. They don't like it, but try to help them out along the way.
That's wonderful. I've actually interviewed Graciela on this podcast previously, and I was lucky enough to get to meet her at Oshkosh last year.
Oh,
And
she is.
Olga and
Yeah.
Sandy, who I'm also going to have on the podcast, because all the different types of jobs that you can have within the field of aviation are, I think, something that young women, especially young Latina women, could really use more exposure to. I never knew it was a possibility for me until somebody didn't sit in my car and tell me that it was. I thought it was a harebrained, unthinkable thing before that. I just never would have thought about it. So I think that's amazing. Would you mind explaining for our viewers who might not be familiar a little bit more about what the Jefferson Award is?
It's come from Washington, D.C. It was formed by Kennedy Onassis. It's for people that do something for public service, they call it. So you need to empower something out in the public to do something out of the pocket. You need to be nominated, and then someone needs to nominate you, and then they check what you do and how you do it, and then they give it to you. So it was interesting. Graciela was behind all this as usual, but she's amazing.
She's quite a force to be reckoned with.
That came along with her. We decided to do something again out of the pocket. So we had high school between 16 and 18 years old, 11 and 12 years in different high schools here in Redwood City and East Palo Alto to bring them in to do something easy. So we got together with her. I got 16 people from NASA, engineers and people that are not engineers, but they work in NASA, financial people in there related with aviation. And one of them was my husband. So we have doctors, nurses, engineers, and NASA people, plus a bunch of pilots in there, and business owners. So people that have restaurants, people that have jewelry in small businesses, to have a chat, a group of 20 in one room for rotating in one day. So we did that for around 200 students. We put them in a room and asked them first what they want to do in the future. And out of them, you have one attorney, one veterinarian, one doctor, and the rest, everything that is related with the where they live, right? The police, social services, community service. Why don't see something a little different, right? So after the chat with these 200 people between 2 days that we have 24 people, 25 adults helping them, the mind changed. And that was the idea. It says, oh, I do like engineering. Why not go that way? And talking to a PhD who comes from Chile and works in NASA, why can't I do the same? And then the Spanish, it says, I don't like to speak Spanish. The contrary, use it, because when you put it in your resume tomorrow, they are fully bilingual. It makes a difference. Embrace where you come from, use your background, and add it up in what you want to do. That is the changes we try to make with Graciela. 2 years to do something like that. It is a lot of work. Once in a while, we do something out of the pocket.
That's important stuff, though. That can change the course of somebody's life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Going back to when you were learning to fly, what was that like? It wasn't new to you. You had some background where your father exposed you to aviation, but what was it like once you started actually learning to fly?
The freedom is to be in the air. The view is never over. No matter how many times you take over and land in the same airport, the view is always amazing. Then you think, listen, a little bird has that option every day, right? It is beautiful. It's the sensation that you are in the air, the richness of it, and being in the air by yourself is beautiful. It's just they take you one place to another one. You start thinking, this is so unusual that you can do that. But it's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing like it. Everybody remembers their first solo.
Yep.
The first time you look around in that airplane and there's nobody in there but you. Pretty badass feeling.
Yes.
What came easy to you And what was particularly challenging to you during the process of learning to fly?
So for me, was try to learn to land in short places and any place. You gotta understand that we are husband and wife who flies together, but we also have a child at home. One of us need to go back to him, regardless of whatever happened up in the air. So for me, was taking a little longer to learn to land in short places and try to see when you fly, you always see something happen, but you can land. Right, that's one of the things that they teach you. That's one of the things I usually do. Where can I land if something happens? So it took a little longer, but I have a lot of landing.
Excellent. And was there something in particular that made it click for you to be able to get it in your head how to land in those types of situations?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? Different planes have a different view. For me, I started learning in a Cessna, but the Cessna to me is very practical because you have two doors, you can come in and out. I felt too low and I was not able to see outside. So this is not really something that I want to. And then I do think personally, for me, a low wing plane is a little more stable. So I feel a little more stable in the air with a low wing plane. So I can see outside and I can see what's happening up there. Sometimes there's a Cessna, you have the wings up. So it's just choices, right? Choices of the plane you fly. The nose of the Cessna is a little heavier. You learn different planes. There are single engines and go around with them. Of course, the ones that are a little faster and more interesting, the plane is faster. So you need to go over the plane as fast as they go. Sometimes it goes too fast, and you need to go around and figure out exactly how to do what you need to do. But you have that option. That's one of the things that when you read an accident and you read the reason why it happens, it's sad. Sometimes it's the pilot. I have to get there. They have to get there necessarily doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. The weather changes. It's too windy. Cannot see the airport well. You need to have those options unless it's safe for you, safe for the people that are with you. And you need to park your plane when you have to. So when it's too windy, why fly when it's too windy? You'll be uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult. Then no, stay home.
When did your buying an airplane of your own come into the picture, and how has the experience of buying the plane and of airplane ownership been like for you?
Two pilots at home, rent two planes, it makes it extremely expensive. So aviation, no matter one way you want to see it, is an expensive venture. It's not cheap. You have schools that will charge you $85,000 to become a private pilot. I always say to the young generation that starts like, say, look at your numbers and make a plan. Because no matter how you want to see it, it takes money. You can become a pilot with $12,000 or you can become a pilot with 25,000. You don't know how long it's going to take you. It's in your own time. You have a minimum, but the maximum can go all over there. And for some people, it comes more natural than other ones. The bilinguals like us, the communication is really fast. You need to learn to communicate fast and how to answer when someone calls you. And I think that's one of the reasons it gets difficult for many. It's not the flying, it's just what do you do when you are trying to figure out what to fly and these people are talking to you on the other radio. Those little things are the most difficult combination. So we sat down, my husband and I, and then we realized that the best way for the two of us to be flying is to get one. It's cheaper for us. It's cheaper to have the adventure we want to have. And then we'll see if my son wants to pop in. So he loves to fly, but not a small plane. So he goes and cleans it and sits down and says, thank you. But he doesn't fly in small planes, but he loves to fly.
You guys own a small plane and your son doesn't like.
No, no. I think it is space for him. As I said, he's autistic. So the space for some of them is good. Is the sound, even though we have noise cancellation, he's not comfortable. So why do I need to push him to go there? It's okay. He lost planes though. We have a collection. I have 3,000 planes in the house, but he's not ready to go in a small plane.
Was it difficult to buy the airplane? How did you find the airplane that you ended up buying?
We look around. We are part of a flying club and got somebody around the area that when someone wants to sell a plane, they always post places to fly one. So you have to have a mechanic check it out, make sure that everything is okay. check the logbook, see who's going to give you the loan. Before it was a little easier. Nowadays, there are some banks that they don't have those loans any longer. So you have the pocket of where you can get a loan is smaller, but it's there. It's available. It's like it's between a house and a car. Longer than a car, less than a house, like a boat. The only problem that the boat is a little different, right? The loans for the planes come between 10 to 15 years, then you can always make that. And the interest rate is not too crazy. It's like a car payment, but a little longer. But you need to know what type of plane you're looking for. Make sure you have the correct mechanic to check the plane, that is, check the logs, make sure that everything is up to date because it's really expensive.
And you want to make sure that you're getting something that you can afford to maintain and to do everything that you need to do. One of the difference between a boat and an airplane is that the regulations are a lot stricter when it comes to aviation. And I think for obvious reasons. What made you choose the Piper Archer, your specific airplane?
Low wings. You like the low wings. I feel very comfortable in a low wing plane. Stable. You're very stable. Super stable.
I've flown both. I personally find the Cessna easier to land. Maybe it's because I have a lot more hours on it. I've flown a Grumman trainer. I've flown a Piper Cherokee, a Piper Archer, Mooney, but mostly 172s, 152s, 150s. I find the Pipers more nose heavy, but I think it might be just a matter of I just have so many more hours in a 172 than in the other one.
So when you land a 172, the nose gets a little heavy because you go a little slower than the Piper. So the Piper, you can go in at 75 knots. But when you turn final, they come down and down. It's Cessna, you go when you come around, it's like 65. For me, 65, I feel uncomfortable with the 65. I feel the nose is really heavy. But it's just one of those things, as you say, it's just the way you feel comfortable. Most of my training was always done in a Piper.
Obviously, trimming it out properly has a lot to do with it as well. But what's your favorite flight that you've ever done?
We went to San Diego with my husband, and we went to Chico also in LA, to San Francisco, all the way down there. It was fun. And then we tried to go into Torrance on the other side of LA, and we have the flight to close over. You need to go around and around. LAX is in the middle. They tell you what to do. So we learned to go at the edge in Southern California, and then be quiet there, stop the flight plan, and go inside. Because this year, even though you have a flight following you, the day following, it's a little easier to go in a different route. They drive you out from you. You need to go 9,000 feet and then go down here and then go down here. It takes hours if you do that. Instead of 2 hours, they give you almost 3. But because they turn it around. So you learn how they manage the airspace and you follow up and then do things a little different.
It's different every place you fly.
The rules do the same, but it's busy. It's a busy airspace. So the same thing if I want to try to go into Chicago. Who's going to go to O'Hare? You are around O'Hare, it's the same thing. They better put you on the side and you stay there because this is not your airspace. Because it's too heavy, too fast, too quick, too many planes, too many runways. I think O'Hare has 8, 6, 7 runways, I think.
It's great if you're not comfortable to get an instructor and start expanding your comfort level with new things, but you want to challenge yourself just the right amount so that you're growing, but you're not in over your head.
Exactly.
Because there's still a risk when you're flying. Just like when you're driving or when you're boating, you want to be aware of the risks and manage them properly. Who was your flight instructor?
Oh, an Argentine. He is amazing. So I think one of the things that I always tell the young women when they start is fly with a couple of CFI. You need to understand the way they teach, that it's good for you to understand what they are teaching you. If their style of teaching is not something that you like, you can change. It's okay to change. But I was very impressed because he taught my husband. He's now on the airlines, but he has always been a teacher. He knows how to pass along that information on the spot. Meaning you're applying, says, you remember this that you read? This is what you're going to be doing. remember this, and this is what you're doing. So match the practice with with whatever was on writing. So it was really, really good.
I always talk about how important the chemistry with the instructor is and the impact that it has on how much your flight training ends up, how long it ends up taking, and how much it ends up costing you has a lot to do with the level of comfort and chemistry that you have with your instructor.
You have to have it. It doesn't work that you can be there for years. It has happened. I have a friend who did happen to her. Took it almost 3 years in between instructors, but she finally found the right one and got her license. Like that, finally.
Have you ever gotten yourself in a situation that you were a little bit uncomfortable or scared with? And if so, how did you handle it and what did you learn from it?
We rented a plane in New Jersey. My husband and a friend of ours who is also an instructor back then. So the three of us were trying to go into Atlantic City. It was hot. It was very humid. This is the middle of the summer. The guy in the tower in Atlantic City said, recycle your transponder. Your transponder is not working well. You have a beep. You can't go into my airspace. You need to go back. So we decided to land in a small place and had something to eat. And then when we get back, the one radio was stuck, the other one we can listen. It wasn't working the transponder well. So we needed to go back home, right? So we went up and we did just with the map because that plane didn't have GPS either. So with the map at hand, trying to figure out in between all those trees, you have Philadelphia, you have New York, you have a military base in there. So you needed to find the street up there to go in between these two spaces and try to follow the street in a sense. So that's what we did. And then we got to the near airport and overflew the airport to make sure nobody was there. And when we landed, the mechanic was waiting. He says, yeah, you have issues. I said, listen, your radio stopped, the other one is working, and then your transponder it doesn't work. He said, you are the second one today, no, the third one today. They don't like hot weather. It's 115 degrees. What do you want?
So they fixed your transponder there and then you were able
Yeah,
to.
it wasn't ours. We rented a plane for the flying club, but when it's very hot, it's hot inside, it's hot outside. It's crazy to be in the air in the middle of the noontime. 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe, but noontime is very heavy rain. And then they were all plain. Doesn't mean nothing is wrong with them, but it didn't react well with the weather. So we just tried to go back and because we went, I think the next weekend we went to Pennsylvania someplace and we had lunch in Pennsylvania. It was beautiful. When it's too hot, that makes no sense.
Plus the density, altitude, and the impact that it has on the performance of the airplane, of course.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize how much of an impact the humidity and the heat have on the performance of the airplane, as well as the elevation, of course.
That's what's happened here along all the time. So you fly to Lake Tahoe 7 o'clock in the morning. But by the time it's 11:30, 12, even though you're sitting at 7,000 feet, it feels like 11,000, not 7. So try to get out in a little 170 when it's hot. You can't do it. You're in the middle of the mountains. You need to wait until the next morning.
There are people who don't realize the importance of waiting and have really gotten themselves into trouble out.
So many times. And they said that, hey, this is here. You go through the lake. You can't fly through the lake. First, it sucks you in, and then you need to see if you're on the side of the lake, it lifts you up. But still, you need to be going around and around till you go up and then try to go over the mountain. Tomorrow. That's it.
It's definitely important to know when to fly and when to wait.
That's the good thing about the little airplane. You go in the morning, you check the weather, and you check the weather not only when you leave, but at what time you expect to come back. If you see that the winds are coming and shifting and going up 35 knots, no, can't do that. I know it's beautiful outside. You don't know if in 2 hours it's going to be bad. You always check that. It's something that we always do. Nowadays, you have the iPad, you have the GPS, and the iPad comes with the weather. You have technology, use it wisely. Doesn't mean that is the only thing you need to check on. So you have access to the computer before you leave. You always have in the air a number that you can call. This is changing. What do I know? So you have access. But those things you need to learn along the way that you keep them handy in case of an emergency. And That's what I think private pilots need to maintain. Yeah, it's not the same thing as an airline. It's windy, you just get out. If it's raining, you get out. You don't do that with a little one.
What goals do you have for yourself in aviation, or what do you think it would be cool to learn next? I know you said you want to work on your instrument rating.
I would love to fly with my husband for a week from here to here. The problem is that it's not so simple to find somebody who can stay with my son. So the last vacation we had was 24 hours because that's about it. So we're going to try to see if we can plan something maybe in the next 2 years with my sister-in-law. So we'll see. If she comes here and things change, maybe. But that would be fun to do that with my husband, to go across the big US. But I want to go to Canada and go all the way to Alaska. That's my dream.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It's gonna be that during the summer only, right? But because you can't do that unless you're a bush pilot. But no, that would be fun.
That sounds like a great thing to put on a bucket list for sure.
One of these days.
Do you have GPS in your Piper? Or
Yeah. You have the iPad, you have full flight. It's connected to our GPS, but it still is a secondary help. It's not something that you use it to fly. And that's what I see in this new generation. For me, it's a conversation the CFI needs to have with them, that they need to learn with the instruments they have and add it after they have the private pilot license. That makes things easier to fly. Because if you mix them both, one is different than the other one. What happens if the iPad dies in the middle of the flight and you don't know how to react with everything that you have on? Learn what you have with and then add extra after. That's cool because they all try to say, I have full flight. Yeah, but if you don't have an iPad and the iPad dies and you don't have a battery in the plane, how do you fly? You're lost in the middle of nowhere. You need to understand where you're sitting when you fly. I think that a conversation, and the old CFIs will always say you fly with a six-pack first. But this new generation is all about having information right in their hands. So they need to learn that the phone and the full flight and everything that you have is secondary. It's an aid that you can have later. Follow your instruments. Look outside. This is key. It's key.
I agree. Redundancy is very important.
Have those flights that are long, like a couple of hours. We have a couple, 30 hours who flies all over the place. The only thing extra that they have when they fly, besides all the extra technology, is satellite phone. If your phone dies and you have a satellite phone that is fully charged and you have an accident, how do you cope? So he has a satellite phone where he travels. They activate only for the travel and then they activate it after. But it's a good idea to have extra, especially when you fly across country in a little plane and they like to fly with oxygen on and 11,000 feet out there.
For someone who might be interested in getting their private pilot certificate to use in their life and to have that skill, what would be some advice that you would have for them?
Get an introductory flight first. Get that intro first. See how you will feel flying, right? So you're going to be flying with a certificate with a CFI next to you, for an instructor. But it's how you feel in the plane while flying in a small plane. It's not the same thing as a big one, right? So they need to understand that. And then, yeah, I want to be in the air. And then you realize this is not for me. I feel uncomfortable. I feel unsafe. This is not. So don't jump the gun until you have that introductory flight. See how you feel up there. And maybe if you are on the fence, try a second one with someone different in the cockpit. And then that's it. Now, sit down and plan. Because part of the issue that I see is, I want to start and then don't have the money after. So you have been flying for 25 hours and then you have nothing else. Latinas in Aviation, the idea was to have a magazine. So the first two magazines that we were able to put outside, there was a page in there that I put together. It says, where you find people talk about 135. They took a 61, the 141. What is it? So you explain to them what is the difference between one and the other one. But the price between one and the other, you're talking about a little car here and a Mercedes, right? Because that's the difference in the price. You need to see what is something that is good for you, and it is okay to go slow on your own pace through the CFI and a small flying club, or is something that you are 100% know you want something cramped, fast, and strong that you are able to follow, right? Because Part 41 has a timeline. Under the FAA regulation, you need to go in this place, finish this place. But remember, the price in this one and this one is huge. So plan ahead. And then they say, I'm going to go accepted in Emergencies. I have a full scholarship for Emergencies. You have a scholarship. The flying plan is not included. So what do you mean? You want to be a pilot with Amarillo? You need to put it out of your pocket, and Amarillo will charge you $85,000 more. Find a place, understand the cost, and see what you can find. And then you have a lot of scholarships out there. Look for them. Be part of the associations. Be part of the Women of Aviation International. Be part of the 99s, the local chapters around, the EAA. You have a lot of associations around. Look into them. They always have. But they have a small scholarship. Yes, but if I have a scholarship for $1,000 here and $300 here and $5,000 here and $25,000 here, everything is look around. Apply for all of them. Why not? The only thing that they can tell you is no thank you. So that you learn from that. Maybe the presentation in my letter to get the scholarship was not right. So you gotta understand what are you planning. Put it in writing. Want to be a pilot because from here to here. And that is what they need to see. You don't need to tell them, I come from a little family. No, they don't want to see that. It's what is your end goal and how do you want to get there. And at the end, you can say, by the way, I was born here and I have cousins and plan A to B and what do you want? How do you want to get there? That's what they want to see. That's the writing that you need. And women, sometimes they don't want to ask for help. And that's part of the issue. And there's some places and some cultural thing inside. This is I need to ask him. Who is the him? Dad, mom, brother. So make sure that you can do these things by yourself. You're not going to fly with him, with her in there. It's you who's flying. That decision is yours, it's not them. So try to figure out that challenging change in that idea that is part of the culture. Says, no, I can't do this. And then you find places that you have a lot of women that are doing really amazing things. And they don't realize that existed until you start telling them, have you seen this? Have you seen that? You know that about. We are very few. They're still battling all the field because the amount of pilots, at least in the airport transport pilot, is very low. The difference from 4.1 to 4.3 in 4 years is too little. It's very little. But the guard is changing. We need to push them. I think the change we need coming from the inside out. The human resources inside Alaska Airlines tomorrow is not to have a man or a woman in there, but a person who can embrace something different and elevate you to be more. So when you have that in the HR department, things change. They really change from the little company to the big company. It's just a matter of having the right fit. It takes time. But also, you need to give them the good stories because there are many. So I think it's important to talk about those stories that are amazing and share them with another woman. Because what I have seen also is the woman who is sitting as a captain in an airport transport pilot, so captain in United or in American or any airline, sometimes gets frustrated with a young woman who's coming in as a first officer. And they need to understand, we have a saying where I come from that says, the cow needs to remember when you was a cow. Remember the day you were sitting there and the position was the other way around. In this case, you are the captain. Give them a hand. Elevate them. Give them what they need. And make them feel strong enough to use their voice. Help them out tomorrow. Make sure that whatever experience you have, I says, remember, don't take this, don't take that, don't do that. Be sharp. Remember, be prepared. Those advices from a woman to another woman who's sitting in the same place are key. But sometimes you have the other way around. Says, I'm the captain. It took me 6,000 hours to get in. You have 2,500. You're sitting over here already. So that one also needs to change a little bit, right? So you have men that will give you the right advice. You have men that will try to put you down. And you have women who will give you the right advice. And the sad part is that you have another woman that can put you down. So it works both ways. So sometimes when they are already up there, have that conversation because it's really important that they need to be at ease with you coming in. But when you see that, this is, hey, wait, remember when you were here? Let's talk about it because that's what you need to use your voice. So if another human being is sitting with you, make sure you do it right.
Was there something about your relationship with yourself that changed when you finally got to see yourself as someone who was capable? Like I did this, I'm learning to fly, I'm actually doing this, I got my certificate. Was there a moment where your relationship with yourself changed through the act of learning to fly?
Nice question. We feel a sense of accomplishment that's very strong because you alone that is the one who's flying. You don't need to have somebody else to fly with you. You can pick up that key and you can go in and fly. the responsibility you have when you become a pilot, the responsibility when you go inside that cockpit and fly, the responsibility that you were lucky enough to be sitting there, but at the same time, maybe embrace the one that is coming, help them out. Because they're going to go through the same thing too. Maybe a little different, maybe a little shorter, maybe longer. And I think be open minded to the people around you. So it changes you because you become more independent. You understand the privilege you're in. It's a privilege to be in the air. It's not that like anybody here, it's not like a car that you learn to drive a car. So it's a huge accomplishment, but it also is a privilege to be there.
Absolutely. When I was a singer and a DJ, I always used to say, nobody's going to die if I hit the wrong note. But I was very aware when I started flying that I lost the right to say that because people's lives are on the line in the airplane and on the ground.
It's responsibility. It's a big, huge
but also to get to know yourself as a person who's capable of taking on that responsibility and making those decisions. It can be a really special and transformative thing when you realize that you are capable of learning to fly that machine, of making good decisions like aeronautical decision making, and to carry that responsibility with pride and with the appropriate amount of respect for it. Is there any last advice or thoughts that you would want to leave the listeners of the podcast with today?
Latinas, we are very few up there. Reach out because we have a lot of things for the Latinas. I think they need to learn that you have another sister, and that sister will tell you, yes, you need to do this, and yes, you need to do that. Reach out when you have a question. You know, as a woman to another woman who wants to fly, reach out. Look for that mentor, for that person you can talk to. We can guide you not only in the financial side because we know what it is, but also through that learning period that you have when you start picking up those books, when you start flying at the beginning, when you get upset with something. Communication is usually one of those. But reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to another one who is in the same position like you. I used to have a young lady that had a get together once in a while with student pilots. Let me bring the student person. Why do you think about this and why do you think about that and where do you find the answer for this? And so try to do the same thing and bring a pilot within that group because it will tell you what you're looking for. So reach out. I think that it's really important to reach out. I have a question. Can I go talk to you? So that's very important. The aviation world is very small. The aviation world is extremely small. Yeah, a lot of pilots are in the US, but you go out of the borders, and the amount of pilots are very small. They know each other. They know who you are. They know where they're going. I have been fortunate to see women in Costa Rica because my husband is Costa Rican. Reaching out is nice to see them be able to do something that is not out there. You have a young lady who's in the 35s, right? Who was hired directly as a captain. So she was hired from one airline to another one directly as a captain. Embrace that. Celebrate her every time you can. So look around your neighborhood in your area where you are. Look another woman, talk to them, and feel comfortable enough to ask all the questions you have.
Thank you. That's fantastic advice. Because, like you said, women and Latina women do often feel very uncomfortable with asking for help. But there is a community that is cheering you on and that wants to welcome you to the world of aviation. Find those people and reach out to them. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Chicks Who Fly. I hope you found today's episode as inspiring and motivating as I did. These stories are a powerful reminder that it's never too late to pursue your passion and make a significant impact in the aviation world. If you're ready to take the first step towards your aviation career, don't forget to opt in for our free PDF. It has all the information you need about becoming an FAA certificated ground instructor, including requirements and the process to get started. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode filled with more inspiring stories and valuable insights. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more aspiring pilots like you. Until next time, keep dreaming big, keep flying high, and remember that the sky is just the beginning. Fly safe and see you in the next episode.